What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic here, Jim to my right, and Brennan from Vortex Edge across from us. Now, we're talking today kind of about, we are, EDC. Jim, we're going to do a pocket dump today, and hopefully that doesn't require any sort of clarification. Speaking of like EDC or things that you just should do every day, Brennan, and we covered this a little bit before we got on the old recorder here. This is your first cup of coffee. It's 10 a.m. It's after 10 a.m.
Yeah.
What happened? Daylight savings get you?
I mean, I was a little distracted this morning with my dog. Yeah, and then this was the last thing I did before I came up here to record. And I knew I had to have some coffee in me before I recorded. Otherwise, this might not go well.
That's like, maybe that's not like an EDC. Maybe it is. It's more of like part of your everyday process. Like it needs, I don't know.
You got your name on that mug anywhere, Brennan? Because you bring that up here. It's a different story when we're not at the range. I think
I lost them.
Just my
I
DNA.
think I lost one yesterday.
This is an unsafe environment when it comes to mugs.
I need to put some stickers on here that are
there. You go. Some identifying
slaps
thing.
Now, Jim, you guys can both. Sorry, I totally interrupted our sidetrack there, but
probably for good reason.
Let's talk a little bit about the importance before we get into your pocket dump of a strong EDC game. And I'm not talking just like only pistols, but like, why should a person have a strong EDC game going?
So I would start that by saying everybody already has an EDC, whether they know it or not, right? So everybody carries something with them every day, whether that is just simply your phone, wallet, and keys, chapstick, whatever it is that you tend to grab, throw in your pockets or in a bag or something like that when you leave for work or leave the house in general, right?
Fair enough.
When we start kind of thinking about the EDC world, or the guys who are really into EDC or everyday carry, they tend to carry a lot of, it tends to, kind of center around guns, knives, tools, things like that. So I think the way I try to break it down for myself is, what do I want to carry on me that I'm either going to use super frequently, right? So like my phone, use that all the time. Don't want to leave the house without it. Or something that would have an extremely negative consequence if I didn't have it on me. So say a pistol.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense to me. Jim?
I agree.
Jim concurs.
That's the kind of hard-hitting reporting you get here at the Vortex Nation podcast.
Back to you, Jim.
I thought I was watching an episode of Craig's News there.
Everybody, that is a good point that Brennan brings up. Everybody's got an EDC of some sort, and it is so synonymous, in especially this industry, with having a gun. And I've brought up the term before, the phraseology before, EDC shaming. I think a lot of times people out there, like, they kind of EDC shame other people, right?
Like, what do you mean? Like, you call that an EDC?
Yeah, like, if somebody breaks out like a pocket knife and a pocket knife and their keys in a wallet, then somebody else who, goes on Instagram and produces an entire, 6 foot long Super Bowl party buffet table worth of EDC items out of their pocket. They got like an AK-47 coming out of their pant leg. They're like, "That's EDC, brother. You ain't got nothing on this." It's like, really? Like, what's the point of all that? And this is where, too, I don't want to like reverse it and be like, anybody who carries a lot of stuff is clearly an idiot, because I'm not saying that. But it's like, I think, to Brennan's point, you got to look at your own life, your own situation. What are you going to potentially run into where you will absolutely need XYZ? What is it? Mark, you just whipped out your EDC. I literally described your EDC.
I honestly,
a pocket knife, keys in your wallet.
It's great.
I have my phone too.
All right.
So, but yeah, that's why I found it somewhat comical when you're like, some guy that just has a real, pansy EDC setup.
Yeah.
Now I will say
Peter
though,
Pan over here.
I do have a hidden. Yes.
This is a very thick wallet.
Yes, like people say, look at that Costanza wallet.
Do you take that out when you sit down?
This thing will stop a bullet.
If you look up scoliosis in a dictionary, there's a picture of that wallet in somebody's back pocket.
Yeah, that's front pocket only right there. But yeah, that'll stop a bullet, Jim. So if I got shot, people are like, oh my gosh, he's hitting the pelvis. No.
So
yeah, we're good.
What you're saying is that is really replacing a tourniquet for you in that left leg.
Or Yeah, multi
or like a level 4 plate just for your front hip.
pocket plates. That's what I'm going to start a business called
About
Pocket
a
plates.
2-inch by 4-inch plate there.
That's right.
It's good. I like it.
You know, my okay, totally sidetracking.
We're going to go way over 10
I know.
minutes.
My brother and I was he was doing some chainsaw work. Got a little careless with it. I think he got fatigued, and saw caught him right here.
In the wallet?
His key fob saved him.
Jiminy Christmas.
I know. Like, talk about close calls. Okay,
EDC
guys, sorry.
could save your life.
I'm going to openly apologize to the listeners out there. Should we get it? Should we get into this? Should we actually do what we came to do?
Yeah.
All right.
Do it.
Brennan,
I like that you just
it's time to put
did
it out
your
on
pocket dump as well.
Yeah,
table.
so Brennan's going to do a pocket dump and what, explain as he goes?
Yeah,
Or-
let's
Is
just
that what
like
you
what's your EDC
All right.
kit look like?
iPhone, not really sure which generation it is. I don't really care, but I do spend a lot of my life on that. Everybody does the whole wallet, keys, and phone, I think. So I also do that. I used to pride myself on having very few keys on my keychain, and it has kind of grown and grown.
Very janitorial of you.
It is very
Yes.
janitorial of me. It's also very dad of me. Now I use these little carabiners to clip it onto my belt, and so I jangle everywhere I go. So that's extra janitory. But this is actually pretty convenient. Wallet, I like a slimmer wallet, unlike Mark over here, just because I do carry this in my back pocket, and so I like to be able to sit on it without pulling it out and putting it on the table, because when I tend to put things on the table, then I tend to leave it on the table.
Yes.
And then vacate that area, and there's my EDC. No longer on my body. So anyways, like to keep a pretty slim wallet. This one's from Open Sea Leather. In my pocket, I also have a magazine. This usually is in my gun, but I unloaded my gun before I came here, so that is usually in my gun.
Are you just free carrying that in your pocket, or you got one of those Neomag things?
Well, so this is usually in my actual gun loaded.
Oh,
so I
okay,
just
got
pulled
got
it out
got it.
literally just because I wanted to have a clear gun for this.
Roger.
So magazine kind of out of the way. So that's kind of my administrative stuff that I carry. I guess I also carry AirPods. I use AirPods to listen to music, take phone calls, all that stuff. So that stuff is always on me. This is the stuff I would say is, I guess we'll categorize it after we get everything out. So I also carry a handheld light. So this is a light from Mod Light, pretty hefty handheld light, kind of more in the tactical realm, not super like admin related. So a lot of people will carry.
Like, what would you consider like admin work for a light?
Like, yeah, Jimmy
Finding
carries like
stuff.
a little pen light or something small that has low lumen output that's not going to blind you. So if I went to go look for my keys or something under the couch, this thing is super bright. And this is really made for shining at people, primarily. But this is a mod light with an OKW head, I believe I've got on here. Actually, it's a PLHV2. So this is an expensive light, but I have found that it's brighter than almost anything else out there. Allows me to use it effectively in varying lighting conditions, not just the dark. So if you're in a pitch dark room and you use even just a very dim flashlight, like on your phone, that's kind of all you can see. But when you have some sort of ambient light around you and you shine this at something, this is still going to kind of overpower whatever lighting situation you're in. So that's why I carry a super bright light. I also use this, as bright as it is, for a lot of administrative tasks as well. Whether that's, looking down the barrel of a gun to look for, debris or any sort of jam. We'll do that sometimes. Walk into the range, the lights aren't on, or somebody shuts them off. I'll click on my light. So I actually do use this a ton. But it also has kind of a defensive role.
Can we stick on lights for a little while? Because I
Yeah.
feel like lights are a really important
Certainly.
one.
I do. I want to go back to Brennan's though. So like the ring or whatever with the clip, that's not part of the original light, or that is?
It's not. So this
Okay.
this ring is made by a company called Theorem. This is called the Switchback 2.0. So what this does is it serves two purposes. So one, it has a pocket clip, so it clips onto my pocket just kind of like a flashlight. And two,
Those
that
mod lights
ring
don't come with a clip.
Correct. They don't. And then two, that ring allows easy access. So I can reach down, find that ring with my index finger,
Okay.
and then pull the light out. And now I'm holding it kind of in the way that I would to, to light somebody up with lumens. The other thing that they've designed with this is because you've got your finger through a ring, if you were to get into some sort of fight or tussle, this ring is actually designed so it will break loose, right? And so there's this little detachment there. So if this was to get twisted around, your finger is not going to, get all
go with it,
bent out of shape, right? Exactly.
It does have a point on the end, which seems to be a force multiplier, if you will.
It does. I believe the idea there
phrase.
was able to, use as some sort of striking implement. So if I were to hit with that, I don't know that I'm a big fan of that. It also has some jimping on the back of here. So the idea there was to be able to turn the light on and then use a two-handed grip on your pistol and still have a light there. Again, I don't really use it for that function just because I do have a weapon-mounted light on my carry gun.
Gotcha.
But it's multifunctional for sure.
So the reason I want to talk about flashlights so much is, well, I guess one, you mentioned the weapon-mounted light, which, if you've got that on your gun, that's awesome and all, but it's not exactly something you're going to be using administratively. It's not like you want to just be pointing your gun at everything that you want to just look for.
Definitely
Especially if you're looking for something that you don't want to shoot, which I find I'm doing far more often than I'm looking for things that I do want to shoot in the dark. But the light thing, I don't know, I'm guessing it's probably the same for you, Brennan, but I feel like I use my light more than any other tool. Actually, just any other tool. I think I use a flashlight. Maybe I'm being presumptuous by saying you probably, but I can say that's the case for me. Maybe I'm just dropping and losing stuff all the time. But like, I pull my flashlight out way more than my knife. Way more.
I would say it's pretty similar for me. I think I'm probably close to about maybe 60% flashlight, 40% knife. I use my knife quite a bit.
Yeah.
A lot of things not for cutting. Like, I need to pry on something.
Right.
Probably shouldn't do it.
You also use your knife like a hammer?
Yes, very much so. But yeah, lights I do end up using more often than I ever thought I would before I started carrying a light. And if I do, for me, you carry a smaller light that has some more administrative modes, low lumen modes. If I need low lumens, I also have a light on my phone, a flashlight on my phone. So I can also use that if I need something that's really anemic like that.
Yeah, the phone I found is pretty, whenever I've seen somebody lose something in the dark and then all these people start pulling out their phones for the phone flashlight, I'm just like, it's not good enough. It really...
excuse me, let me help.
And the problem that I had, so I used to carry a mod light. The problem that I had was every time I'd bring that out to look for something, I would blind myself and everybody around me by shining it at the ground or a wall or anything, and because it was so bright. And so that was where I settled on the Streamlight Macro Stream, because it's like 300 lumens, and if you double tap it, it's 100 lumens. And I double tap it all the time to just get 100 lumens, because that's all even the 300 lumens will blind me if it's really dark out. But yeah, then I did give up the ability to, if you're in a situation where somebody's coming up to you, and we've said this before in some of our classes, but if you're in a situation where somebody's coming up to you and you're a dark, shadowy figure at night in a parking lot, and you hit him with a flashlight, especially one like that mod light, boy, I mean, you're going to put them on their heels, and you're going to do it in a way where if it is a friendly person who just was approaching a little bit suspiciously, then you didn't just point a gun at them. Or, if it is somebody who is, looking to do something nefarious, they're usually so taken aback, or that you would think that they would be, in most cases with most of the people that we're talking about, unless this person's like an assassin out for blood. At least you've slowed them down probably. But most people will be like, oh, I'm out.
I think that would lead me to believe not the person I'm trying to tangle with today. I'm going to assume that the light is the first step in this person's process.
Yeah. Well, and even, I've talked to even my sisters who don't carry, right? But have expressed concerns about, what can I do to, make myself a harder target, things like that. It was like, hey, carry a flashlight in your pocket, in your purse, whatever. And if it's dark, carry it in your hand, right? And people associate bright lights. If you see somebody walking around with a bright flashlight, do you associate that with a certain type of person? I mean, for me, it's usually like a law enforcement officer or something like that. Somebody walking around doing some sort of patrolling or something like that. They are where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be in that spot, and they're kind of on high alert. So anytime I see somebody using a bright flashlight, that tells me that person is kind of alert and ready to go. So if you're using a flashlight, even if it's just to walk to your car, man, I think that sends the right signal to people for sure.
Yeah. Those ones you got to keep up on the battery a little bit more, I've noticed too.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because they're so powerful. I found myself running out of battery a lot with that one just because I was using it all the time for looking for stuff, where I don't so much with this. But again, it's trade-offs.
You carry a few extra batteries in your car, in your backpack, something like that. Switch it out as you need to. Keep a few on the charger at home.
Those things are so bright, I'm convinced that if you shine them in the sky, you might cause an aircraft to come down.
They're awesome, and literally I carry it for that reason, just because the output is so good. It's even if you go into flashlight wars and it's light against light, this will tend to punch through something. So even if you have a car headlights shining right at you, and I shine this light, it'll still punch through the tint in the window and past all that light, and I'll still be able to see into that windshield and things like that. So that's literally the reason I carry that. I have actually thought about carrying some sort of pen light as well, something that's smaller for stuff. But so far, I've been able to get by with just my phone.
Sure.
So
cool.
Yeah, flashlights, super big part of my EDC, and I really don't like to leave the house without this. And even if I do have to go somewhere without a firearm for some reason, I'm going to carry the light.
Okay, sure, right? I like that.
Including airports, right? So this will go right with you on the plane.
Yep.
Throw it in the bin, goes through. TSA likes to look at it. They're like, oh, what's this? I'm like, it's a flashlight. And I actually had one person shining in their eyes.
Oh.
And then they were like, oh, my gosh. I was like, yeah, it's really bright. They're like, okay, all right. And they just put it back.
I agree.
But yeah, I like to have that. That's pretty cool. So let's see. What else do I have? So I guess we'll get into the pistol. So I carry a Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0. This is the 5-inch model. And I have got a Surefire X300 on here. This is the B model. And I also have our brand new Vortex Defender CCW dot. This is the 6 MOA version. So this has been cleared prior. But this gun is fairly large for concealed carry. I do understand that. We've talked about concealed carry pistols and things before on the podcast. I carry this gun because I shoot it really well. It's the same size, same exact model as my competition gun, and my teaching gun down at Edge. Spend a lot of time with this gun, really, really familiar with how it shoots, how it handles. I also really like that, in this magazine, I've got 19 rounds. In my gun. So that's really nice, and I literally carry this because I feel like I'm the most capable with it, and I can get away with concealing it. Not everybody can, but I've put in a good bit of work to make this concealable, and I feel like I get away with it. So that's the gun choice for me.
When you say you put in a good bit of work to make this concealable, what are you referring to? Is it the holster selection? Does it even go so far back as to the clothes that you select and the sizes that you choose? What do you mean?
Kind of all of the above.
Yeah.
So I think it starts with first understanding some basic stuff about your body type. Where is a good place to actually start concealing a gun on your body in the first place? How holsters need to interact with your body, how belts interact with a holster and your body, and also clothing type, right? So I'm probably a really bad example of this because the shirt I'm wearing right now is kind of this athletic material, pretty thin. It's actually not optimal for concealing because it tends to print a little bit more. But I will oftentimes be very judicious in the kinds of clothing that I pick. So for instance, a flannel shirt with some sort of print on it, super good for concealment, right? Because even if you are printing a little bit, the shirt's so busy that you're not going to see it. Now, if I was wearing a thin, white Under Armour style shirt, right, a workout shirt, that's probably going to be worse, right?
Jim goes with paisley a lot.
Oh yeah, paisley.
What is with you?
You wear the
false
full
accusations.
paisley shirts.
I wear paisley shirts. I go to unicorn conferences. What else? Tell me more about myself.
At the unicorn
Tell me-
conferences, right?
Tell me more about me. I don't know, Jim.
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
sorry.
Is there a target?
I'm sorry. You know what? I'm sorry. It was uncalled for, and I'm apologizing.
Yeah, I
totally ruined
can't
We were
stop thinking
talking
about
about
paisley.
flannel
I
printing.
know,
Honestly. Yeah, so clothing choice does come into it, obviously. But the other thing, too, is just figuring out what you can get away with, what kind of holster accessories you need, how you want a holster designed to actually aid in concealment, all those types of things. So things like you'll see this concealment wing here, upgraded clips, holster clips.
What's the concealment wing do?
So this works in conjunction with a belt. So if you imagine if my finger was the belt, right, and it's going underneath the clip, and then as I tighten the belt, right, it pulls that in.
Okay.
And so if I had this gun up against my body and I started to tighten that belt, you see it tucks that grip in. So the holster tends to sit like this, and as I tighten the belt, it tightens in, and now it's right up against my skin, and it's not protruding out, especially this corner of the grip right here.
And this is an appendix holster too, for those who
This is an appendix holster. Yep, I carried it right at about 12 o'clock. And then this holster specifically, for years and years, I carried a holster that was just a holster for the gun, right? And recently, I've started carrying this holster. This is made by Tier 1 Concealed. This is the Axis Elite, and this one has an attached mag carrier to carry an additional spare magazine. I like it. This holster does not conceal as well as my standalone holsters, just because I feel like I can manipulate the standalone holsters a little bit more to my body type and get a little bit better concealment. But I really like how convenient this is to have an extra mag right there. It's all just one unit, and to me, I get acceptable concealment out of it, and so that's what I've been running. These are really well-made holsters.
Brennan, how many? Because I think this is another important thing to mention, because some people get discouraged if they look at the holster market and all the accessories and things like this, and they're like, well, shoot, if I buy a holster and I don't like it, I'm screwed. Like, how many holsters have you gone through before you found the setup that you like to use?
Man, I feel like probably close to a dozen.
Yeah. I think what I'm getting at is that it's you kind of have to accept a certain level of trial and error. The nice thing is that there are people like Brennan who go out and they try all kinds of different things, and you can take some of their word, but at the same time too, like, you're going to have your own unique situation, so you can't always just look at somebody's setup and just completely copy it and expect it to work exactly the same way it works for them, for you. There is a level of trial and error, which, it's unfortunate because it adds up in cost, but when it comes to especially the gun, you're carrying a gun for reasons that are kind of invaluable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
if you're going to do that, like, you want it to be working optimally.
Yeah.
Like, for you, like you said, your body type.
I want a holster to be super safe, right? So when I holster the gun, a loaded gun with no manual safety, like I've got right here, right? I want a holster that will completely cover the trigger guard with no access to that trigger guard when it's holstered. I also want something that's going to conceal well, which I already talked about, and I want the gun to be in the same place every time, so that when I go for my gun, it's secure, it's in the same spot, and I don't have to hunt around or risk missing my grip or something like that when I go to draw the handgun. It's got to be there when I need it to be there, and so I do make some sacrifices with comfort, things like that, in order to have that all in place for me.
There's really no such thing as a holster that feels as though you're not wearing a holster when you have a gun in it and everything, right?
I would agree with that. So I think a lot of people, I think this comes to EDC shaming, where it's like, oh, well, my holster, I carry a AK-47 down my pant leg, and I don't even know it's there. And, I'm like, well, man, I kind of don't believe you, because it's for me, if you're putting a pistol of any size into your waistband, that's not a normal thing. And in my opinion, you should know it's there. It's not ever going to be as comfortable as not wearing a gun. But you can get it to a point where it's very livable, and you can kind of learn to work around it.
Yeah. The belt It's like an EDW, everyday wear thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's super important.
Yeah.
Because you can't just go with some department store leather floppy belt or some like cloth belt, with
Right.
D-rings on the end of it or whatever. Like, you have to have an actual proper belt for this sort of thing. So, Brennan, what's yours?
So, super important, right? Especially when you're carrying a gun, full-size gun, extra magazine. I've got 42 rounds on board with this thing, which is not light.
Strapped.
Yeah. So
Very much.
your holster, your belt has to be able to support the holster and the gun, right? And so something you'll notice about this belt. This belt is a low-profile belt from a company called Blue Alpha. This belt is super rigid up and down, right? So if I try to kind of bend this in on itself, it won't go. It's super rigid, but it has plenty of flexibility this way to kind of conform to my hips. What I like about this is this gun and holster combo will fit very securely with these clips onto this belt, right? And so you can see that this belt is supporting the weight of the gun.
Gotcha.
Right? And that's
Yeah.
not going to then bow in the middle here and kind of do one of these to where now my gun is sagging, it's dragging my pants down. So this is serving several purposes in that it's holding up my pants. Important job right there. But then also it's supporting the weight of a very heavy gun that is attached to my pants, my belt area that could also kind of tend to drag everything down.
Yeah.
And so a super sturdy belt along with a holster that has super sturdy clips is going to do that thing I talked about where it's keeping the gun in the same spot every time. And then because I have a very rigid belt, as I do tighten this up, it tends to help tuck the grip in with an appropriate concealment wing on my holster for an appendix carry holster. I can tighten that up, and I get better concealment as well. So if you've got to carry something in your waistband, have something that's going to support it.
There is a lot to that. Maybe it might even be a different episode, Mark. But there's a lot to the holster and belt setup. But I think, one of the other things too is as you're going to draw your pistol, if you've got one of those floppy belts on, then you're probably going to be taking your whole pants with the gun before it. If you have any sort of retention on the holster, it's just
You're
all
not
around
getting the proper resistance to.
No, it's all
execute
around
drawing your
a
pistol.
much better. The belt is so integral to the whole thing. If you've got a great holster and everything, but you have just a crap belt, I mean, it ruins everything.
I had a favorite belt that I wore for probably 6-7 years, leather belt, full grain leather, super comfortable. And when I started carrying, I was like, well, this is great. I'll just use this belt. It's a nice sturdy leather belt, but it was really worn in and patinaed well, and it was pretty loose and floppy. And I started carrying, and the thing that I noticed was it would immediately sag in the middle. So I tightened it up even more, and then it was all right for concealment, but it was terrible for drawing. Because I could really kind of tuck it away, and I got it tight enough, and it was comfortable around my hips and things. But man, when I went to draw that gun, it was super inconsistent, and the gun would kind of shift around a little bit. No bueno for me.
Yeah.
No bueno.
Is that it?
One more thing. So this is I also carry a tourniquet. For I know you guys have had some medical related podcasts before. So this is a tourniquet made by TacMed Solutions. This is called the Soft TY. This is actually their older model of tourniquet. The reason I carry this is because, when you study injuries and massive hemorrhaging and things like that, the number of seconds it takes before you lose enough blood to where it's fatal is very short, right? So we're talking easily under a minute, and in many cases 30 seconds or less, right? To where you're really in a critical condition. So always carry medical in my truck. I've got a full IFAK in my EDC bag, right? But that's not always on my person. This is always on my person. The reason I carry this is just because I feel like, kind of back to what I said earlier, this is not a convenience thing. I don't use this a lot, but I feel like the negative consequences of not carrying this are extreme, and they're terrible. So I stick this folded up in my back pocket. I chose this tourniquet as opposed to other ones like the Cat Gen 7, right? Because it's super thin, right? And I don't know if the camera could pick this up super well, but this is about the same width as my wallet, right? Doesn't really take up much room at all.
Together, it's the same width as my wallet.
It's honestly, you could
Yes.
probably fit about 6 of these in your pocket to match the size of your wallet. But so I carry this in my back right hip pocket. Again, never hope to have to use this. Never want to use it because that's going to be a bad day for me or someone else. But I just have a lot of peace of mind having a tourniquet actually on my body versus, it's 3 minutes away in the truck.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that's it, right? That's everything I carry. So phone, wallet, keys, just like everybody else. AirPods to listen to music and the Vortex Nation podcast.
Ooh, I like
My man.
I got a flashlight, right? That's super essential for me. A tourniquet, essential, and a pistol, that's essential. Now, occasionally I will carry other things in my pockets, depending on the day, but this is the stuff that really doesn't change.
that. I like it. I was expecting. I mean, it's not as much as I actually thought. I was expecting there's gonna be like some magician scarf thing, and then I had
Well, that's the thing is that like people assume that if you carry more stuff, you're better. So you're like, oh yeah, Brennan, instructor, guy likes to shoot a lot. Therefore, he's probably in the upper echelon of EDC carrying. Therefore, it's probably going to just be a mass quantity of things. But that's not the case. You could have the best EDC setup, and maybe you got like 1 or 2 things in your pockets, but it's just perfect for you.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and that's something I tell people too is I think some people are intimidated when they start thinking about the idea of EDC or everyday carry, and they feel like, I don't have any sort of EDC. I got to carry so much. No, just carry the things that you're going to use all the time, things that would have a very negative consequence if you didn't carry them. And then things that are just really convenient. So that's kind of how I break it down. I could carry a lot more stuff. I tried carrying a multi-tool for a long time because I was actually EDC shamed into carrying a multi-tool because everyone said I was a terrible person that I didn't carry one, and I would just use it so much if I did. I literally carried it for about 2 or 3 months and maybe use it twice. And so I stopped carrying it.
There you go.
Didn't like it. Took up too much space in my pockets.
Those 2 times you used it, though, you were a much better person.
At the time, supposedly. Yeah.
So you were led to believe.
I was led to
Awesome,
believe.
man. I like it. I like it a lot.
Carry what you can and what you need, and don't carry more than you need unless you're into that kind of thing. Also, if you have so many things in your pockets, it kind of weighs you down. Oh my gosh, I forgot. I also carry a pocket knife.
Dude, I was waiting. I was like, where's this guy's knife?
You carry that so much, you didn't even.
Unbelievable.
It was in your.
Unbelievable. I can't believe I forgot that. We
I
almost
can't
ended the
either.
podcast.
We had talked about knives a little bit.
Probably
but I
because
was like,
we thought we covered it already. Yeah, I like that one.
Everybody always wants to know. Everybody probably does know if you're interested in EDC at all. There's a Spyderco Paramilitary 2, PM2. This blade steel's in crew wear. I don't know if anybody cares. And brown micarta. This knife I love to death, mostly because it's so fidgety. Like it just flips out and just. Oh, it's so fun. But it's also a great blade shape. I like the size of it.
There's a new fidget spinner in
you
town.
got to be careful, where you play with knives, because I've done that before, and my wife has shot me like death glances. And I'm like, I'm just so used to at work. Nobody cares if you're in a meeting, just like flipping them,
Around minute 40
like,
is when the knife comes out, and I start just,
right.
seeing,
Then you get sort of like drug along to someone's like baby shower or something like that, and you're playing with your knife in the corner, and that's when it's like.
Well, or you just get so used to using it, and I think some people aren't like used to being around somebody who carries a knife. Depending on the groups that I think most of the people here. I don't know, but I know I've been in situations where it's like, so does somebody have scissors? And I'm like, I'll get that.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, like I just it's
we
like,
become desensitized coming to work here every day.
Yeah, guns laying around, knives,
constant
around.
sounds
in a
of,
responsible
constant
manner.
sounds of guns cocking and slides racking and and triggers dry firing.
This is also an excellent knife. Benchmade bug out.
Very lightweight.
Yeah, very lightweight. Excellent knife. I don't own one.
Don't get him started.
Wish I
Brian.
owned one.
Don't get him started.
But I
like
do.
that one.
I do admire it. It's a good choice.
I've carried a lot of knives over the years, and this is the one I'm currently carrying. And
it's not as good of a choice as the Spyderco PM2, but you'll get there.
Not as good of a choice as the
You don't even know what it's called.
Benchmade Bear Creek.
He doesn't even know what it's called.
That is what it's called.
I've got the same one. I love
got a
that
gut
knife
hook
that you use for everything.
for guts. So watch yourself.
You use it for everything. But yeah, this one is so.
Note on
this is
pocket
like,
knives.
You talk about weight.
It's very lightweight.
Do note. Ryan has turned off the shot clock.
Note on
Oh,
pocket
dear.
knives, real quick, is I do not carry a knife for defensive purposes, and I like to clarify that to people. So I have done some hand-to-hand entangled fighting with knives and guns training, right? Not real fights. I'm thankful for that. But anytime a knife was produced in one of those training environments, my personal experience was that I always saw that knife get taken away from the person who produced the knife, and then that person was then stabbed many times with said knife. That kind of scares the heebie-jeebies out of me. Don't like the idea of getting stabbed with any knife, particularly my own, particularly one with something with such a mean pointy blade.
Yeah.
So I carry this knife strictly for opening Amazon packages, the many packages that come down to the range, as Jimmy
Utility
can attest.
type tasks.
Yes, this is not something that I would go to as a defensive tool. Now, could it be used as a defensive tool? Yes, but it's a lethal weapon, right? And so responding with a knife is similar amount of force as with a gun, and I carry a gun. So I'm going to go to gun for those defensive situations before a knife. So I just use this for administrative tasks.
You got to get real close for the knife to actually become effective. You can
real
keep
close,
some distance with a gun.
Real close, not the situation that I want to be in. I don't want to be in either situation, but particularly not this situation. It just seems like it goes very, very badly.
Cool, man. Well, now I like it even more. I was getting ready to close, and I said I like it. Now I like it even more because, we almost forgot a big one. So I probably a lot of people have been like, "What if we glossed over that one?" They'd be like, "This man's an insane person."
They would EDC
Somebody's
shame me
already
out of
stopped.
You
town.
would get EDC. Yeah, exactly.
Somebody's already stopped listening because you didn't bring it up, and they're going to miss this part.
In the first minute, that should have been the first thing I pulled out. They're done.
Well,
They exited.
hopefully not. We'll find
It's
out in the
very sad.
comments.
We will.
All right, Brennan. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I know this one went a little bit long, but very important. Well, except for like the first 10 minutes. Maybe that wasn't when we were just talking. But anyway, we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.